Today we're making an authentic Bolognese, but vegan. Don't tell your nonnas. Or do, maybe they could learn something. The other day my housemate made an authentic Bolognese with meat. Cooked it for like 4 to 5 hours, the whole flat smelt amazing. I was sitting watching TV salivating and I was like, I need a Bolognese like this in my life. I've tried making Bolognese in the past with lentils and it never comes out the same. You can't cook it long enough or you add the lentils later and it just doesn't have that rich ragu flavor. I watched a bunch of Italian cooking videos on how to make authentic Bolognese and I found a meat replacement that allows you to cook it down for 4 to 5 hours. This is a labor of love. It's going to take time, so settle in, maybe book a Sunday off, but it's well worth it. It's so rich, so delicious, you're going to love it. This all starts with a sofrito, a base of vegetables and aromatics. I use 1 red onion. You can use whatever onion you like. I like to use red because it adds a bit of a richer flavor. Then I use 3 carrots peeled and diced and 3 celery stalks. They should all be cut to a uniform size so they cook at the same rate. A lot of traditional Bolognese recipes don't use garlic, but I'm going to tweak things a little bit because we're not using actual meat and we need to generate a bit more flavor. I use 3 cloves of garlic finely diced. Here's a little pro tip for anyone who's new to cooking on camera like I am and is self-conscious about their knife skills. Just get a close-up of yourself talking to camera pretending to chop, and then when you cut to the wide shot, the magic of filmmaking. Now that our sofrito is ready to go, you may have noticed this little treat has snuck into frame. It's not there because of my debilitating alcoholism. This is a really important part of adding that deep, rich flavor to the ragu that we're trying to get. If you're worried about alcohol, it all cooks off. I'm using a Merlot, but you can use whatever red wine you want. We use half with the sofrito and half with the meat later. In a large, deep pot, heat up a generous amount of olive oil. Once the oil is shimmering, add your chopped onions, making sure to block the camera with your arm. Idiot. I like to season in layers, so I add some salt and pepper here. The salt also helps break down the cell wall of the onions, which helps them cook quicker. Once the onions are translucent, add the garlic and cook until fragrant. I like to add a couple tablespoons of water to prevent the garlic from burning. Then add the celery and carrots and some more salt and pepper. Let that cook down for about 4 to 5 minutes or until the carrots and celery start to soften. Then add half a glass of red wine. I accidentally added the whole glass here, when in Rome, or Bologna I guess. Then simmer for a few minutes to allow the alcohol to evaporate. It smells amazing. While our sofrito and red wine are becoming best friends in the hot tub, let's talk about meat. Firstly, it's bad for the environment and we shouldn't be killing animals. But that's not the point. Let's talk about meat substitutes for this recipe. I'm using the Linda McCartney Vegetarian Burgers. Not sponsored, but hey, hit me up at FlavorSims. There's something about the fibrous texture that really holds up well for the long cooking time of this recipe. I can imagine people going, why don't you just use the Beyond Burger or the Beyond Mince? Firstly, the Beyond products are very expensive in South Africa. And secondly, I like these burgers. I like the taste of these burgers and I tested the recipe with them and it worked. So each to their own. I'm using 3 packs, which equates to about 680 grams of mince, which is similar to the amount of mince used in the recipe I'm basing this off. They come frozen and I've chopped them up into these small cubes. I know they don't look very appetizing right now, but once you start cooking them, they behave just like mince. It's amazing. Add the cubed patties to the pot and break them down with a wooden spoon. You just want to keep working them till they break down into mince, for lack of a better word. You almost want to cut them with the side of your spoon like I'm doing here. Once again, I add salt and pepper. Then add the second half of your glass of wine, or in my case, the third half. Let that cook for a few minutes for the alcohol to evaporate. A Bolognese should have a really rich tomatoey base, so we're going all in with the tomato. We've got tomato paste, whole peeled tomatoes, which will break down because the sauce cooks so long, and passata. And by the way, for the amounts of the ingredients, the full written recipe is in the description of the video. I don't have a website because this video is not sponsored by Squarespace. Now that the wine has evaporated, we can add our tomato paste. Let that cook for a couple of minutes, just to cook off some of that acidic taste. Then add the whole peeled tomatoes and crush the tomatoes with the back of your spoon before adding the passata. Rinse the passata bottle out with some water as not to waste any of that tomatoey goodness. Mix that all together and allow to simmer on a low heat. We're going to let this simmer for 1.5 hours before adding our stock, and the whole meal should take about 4 to 5 hours to cook. And I know that seems excessive, especially because we're not cooking meat, but you came here for authentic. I put authentic in the title of the video. Look, there it is. 1,000 dislikes? The Italians must have found it. It's cooked down quite a lot. Now it's time to add a liter of stock. A lot of traditional recipes don't use stock, but we want to add some extra flavor because we're not using real meat. Okay, we've added our liter of stock. It's bubbling away at the back. It's smelling amazing in here. We've got to let that cook for about another hour. I like to keep another liter of stock on hand, and during that hour, I just keep an eye on the sauce and make sure it's not getting too dry. The trick is to let the sauce cook at a really low heat. So you want gentle bubbles on the surface, not spitting, because otherwise it's going to start sticking to the bottom and it'll dry out too quickly. I know throughout this video I've been going on about 4 to 5 hours. Cooked it for like 4 to 5 hours. It's 4 to 5 hours.
4 to 5 hours. 4 to 5 hours.
Now those times aren't set in stone. It's more about giving the sauce time to develop those deep, rich flavors that we want. So I don't know, clean the kitchen, read a book, stare out the window and think about life. What am I doing with my life? It's a Sunday and I'm making a 5-hour Bolognese for a video no one's gonna watch. But just give it time, I promise you it'll be worth it. Add another 500 ml to a liter of stock and allow to cook for another half hour to an hour. Once it is at this stage, turn off the heat and finish the sauce with a cup of your non-dairy milk of choice. This just adds an extra layer of richness to the dish. So let's talk about choice of pasta. Logic would dictate spaghetti bolognese, spaghetti. Well, spaghetti about it. Oh, God. In all seriousness, in my research, everyone said a wider, flatter pasta like pappardelle or tagliatelle is better than something like a spaghetti. It just apparently holds the sauce better. That being said, spaghetti is the easiest pasta to find. And I also know for vegans, it is harder to find some of the fancier shapes. So do what you want, but those are your options. We'd cook this like we'd cook any pasta, heavily salted water, and we're going to cook it for 1 or 2 minutes less than the pack instructions because we're going to finish it in a pan with the bolognese sauce. It's going to be chef's kiss. Once your pasta is cooked, drain it, but remember to reserve a cup of that magical starchy pasta water. Add a few ladles of sauce to a large non-stick pan, then add your drained pasta and start mixing. The sauce should coat the pasta. Add some of that reserved pasta water to the sauce to loosen it up a bit. Let's plate this thing up. Finally, garnish with your favorite vegan parmesan. Saucy. That is so good, guys. Like I've said it throughout the video, it takes time, but it's a labor of love. I know I've said it countless times. It's just that Italian way of taking a few simple ingredients and adding a bit of time and love, and you come up with something that tastes really rich, complex, and so fulfilling and satisfying. This recipe makes like 8 generous portions. I've done it and frozen it, and you heat it up in the week. Go make this, it's worth all the effort and time. Tell a vegan, tell an Italian, see what they think. Maybe we could convert some nonnas. If you make it at home, tag me on Instagram at FlavorSims. If you have a better meat alternative, I'd love to hear about it. And yeah, just get out there and keep cooking. Is that my catchphrase? I don't know. Anyway, peace out. I gotta clean the kitchen.